This is always the awkward moment. I never know when it's actually gone. Here we go. And we are live. Welcome everyone who's joined us. This is the live full-time reaction for Fulham's 2-0 victory. QPR in the final third. And are we all good? I think we are. The connection's good. Drew, I've just lost Drew.
I'm here. I'm here, boys.
Have you got me, George?
I can hear you. I can hear you both.
There we go. All right, I'll start again. And we are live. This is the full-time reaction from Fulhamish of Fulham's fairly unconvincing 2-0 victory. Are we good? Fairly unconvincing 2-0 victory against local rivals QPR in the FA Cup third round. And yeah, I'm joined by Drew Heatley and George Singer. How are we doing, chaps?
Yeah, just about waking up, I think.
George?
Yeah, have to. I'll make myself a strong coffee after this. That was a pretty dull 2 hours of football, I'll be honest.
No. We've lost
Looks
George.
like we've lost George as well. What did you think of the game, Drew?
This is live, folks. Well, do you know what? I thought it was one of the dullest games I've seen in quite some time. But at the end of the day, there are plenty of positives to take from what was 120 minutes of football. Can you believe it? But there were a few things that I would count as positives, which I'm sure we'll get into. But I don't think anyone needed it, less alone the fans.
Do you remember a few years ago the FA Cup against, was it Sheffield United, when it ended up being 2 legs of 0-0? I remember Muammar Tankovic playing a bit, and we ended up losing right at the end of extra time, at the end of the second leg. It was absolutely atrocious football. It reminded me a bit of that. I was quite glad we only had to deal with one leg of this one, to be honest. Cool. You're back there, George.
George is not there. Okay. Well, George Singer, why don't we take it? Why don't we take this puppy for a walk? What do you reckon?
Yeah, we don't need George. We got this covered.
Right. Well, okay. Well, let's start with the first half then, shall we? Let's try and take something from that. For me personally, memories of Jordan Hugill's early goal when we played him just after lockdown. We restarted after lockdown. There was a corner and they nearly went 1-up, which I was just thinking, just reminded me of that. But after that, it sort of petered out into a training ground atmosphere, didn't it?
It definitely did. I think it was
right,
one. There we go. Is George back?
God, sorry, what a start. Sorry,
this is befitting the performance, George.
Absolutely. So sorry, you two just chatting amongst yourselves as we got in. I'm terribly sorry. My internet just cut out, so I had to go on my hotspot. But yeah, I'm guessing that we covered the fact that it was a pretty dull game all in all, and I feel the banality of the match up until the last minute kind of counteracted the excitement of actually getting 2 goals. Was that the general gist? Pretty
much, George. I've had more adrenaline in the last 5 minutes than I have in the previous 120 minutes of that game. So.
Anyway, we got there in the end. Anyway, let's start now. Okay, we start now. Thank you for everyone who stuck by. Fulham 2-0 against QPR, local rivals. This is normally one of my favourite games of the season. It's the one that, well, obviously when we're in the Championship, I'd always look out on the fixture list. The one I get most excited for. I love Loftus Road, and especially today. It was a gorgeous, like blue skies, sunny, crisp day. I was really thinking to myself, I wish that we could be making a short trip 3 miles down the road to Loftus Road today. And it didn't take long into the second half for all of that excitement and anticipation to just sort of get drained out of me. And it became so painfully obvious that this is a game that needs the fans. That was the thing that was missing for me. Like, with just seeing it in the empty stadium with no atmosphere whatsoever. I mean, that's what derbies are for. Essentially, is the atmosphere on the day. And without that, you've just got an everyday game of football. Would you agree, Drew?
No, absolutely. And I said, saying to George, we've done this already in lockdown and at QPR, and it was a bit similar then, and we sort of managed to grab a couple of goals in regular time. Then obviously no extra time in the league, but yeah, it was a strange one, especially with what wasn't it's sort of 1 foot in, 1 foot out of the first team, wasn't it, today with the lineup? And so it all took a bit of a while to get going. It was all a bit sterile, particularly in the first half. There's not really much that I can remember sort of going on there, to be honest, apart from the early chance from a corner, as I said. It was really good to see Josh Onomah back on the pitch in a Fulham shirt, although he didn't particularly have an amazing game. I feel like his omission from the 25-man squad through injury was a bit of a blow. I think he's a player, such a useful player for us last season. I think he can definitely take that step up. So it's good to see him back if you're looking for positives from that first half in particular.
I mean, it was a big, drastic change in the lineup. There were 6 changes overall. Mitrovic in, Kongolo in, Tete, Ream, Onomah, Ruben Loftus-Cheek and Rodak. George Singer, what were your first thoughts upon seeing the starting lineup? Because as Drew said, it was a bit of a one in, one out, but it wasn't a weak team by any stretch of the imagination.
No, it felt like a fairly strong team. Agree about Onomah, and I'd probably say the same with Kongolo as well. Good to see him playing for the first time. I think, was it since the last FA Cup against Man City, where we saw him? So he's only played for us in FA Cup matches, I believe, which is quite a weird run. But yeah, I thought he played pretty well. I think for me, the main talking point about that starting 11 was keeping that 3 at the back formation, which I was a little bit surprised to see, I'll be honest, especially against the big boys, against your Liverpools, your Man Cities, etc. It makes sense to play with that, be more defensively solid and look to pounce on the break. And we've seen that work well against those teams. And obviously it brought us the winner up at Leicester. But when you're playing against a championship quality side, personally, I'm not sure we needed that extra man in defence. I would have liked to have seen us sacrifice one of those defenders, maybe put another midfield player in, because for me, I felt we really struggled to progress the ball up the pitch. Our defenders kept the ball really well, but we really struggled to move it into midfield and into attack. And that's where I would have liked to have seen another midfielder in there. You know, Tom Kearney springs to mind. Not quite sure why he wasn't on the bench. But for me, I think we could have done with sacrificing a defender, bring a midfield player in, dominate the ball a bit more. I would have liked to have seen that. But I guess at the end of the day, it doesn't matter too much. We got through, and that's the important thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very valid point, George, and that it especially in both halves, in fact, there was no fluidity in our team. It was in many ways a very typical derby match, and that it was scrappy. You know, there wasn't long passages of play in which we looked on top, or either team looked on top particularly, and it was sort of a bit staccato in that regard. I mean, Drew, just concentrating on the first half for a second, you said that you couldn't really think of anything that happened. I mean, the only thing that springs to mind was that chance that Joe Bryan had, in which he sort of about 20 minutes in very nearly did a very crafty lob of the goalkeeper. But I mean, I thought personally he looked pretty good today, and it was good to see him back in the side. Do you think he's perhaps put a stamp on to be more involvement in the future?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of coming back into the first 11 today, I'm not sure anybody is going to be sort of knocking on Parker's door in the metaphorical sense to start the next game. But I don't think that's necessarily what was always going to happen. I think we played as a team that had made about 6 changes. You know, I don't think with so many players that have been out. You know, obviously talking about Congo not playing, Brian's not, his minutes have been limited because of Robinson. So I don't think anyone who came in and necessarily will be knocking down that door for Chelsea. But I don't think anybody played particularly terribly either. I think I said that Onomah didn't have the best game. I feel like that's probably being a bit unfair to him, especially as he got an assist in extra time. But I think maybe he started a bit slower than which is probably reasonable to suggest. But it was on Brian's weaker foot, wasn't it? That chance, and there was another chance for Mitro as well, who got tackled by, I think it was Barber. I think it was just typical of Mitro's sort of lack of confidence and sort of desire to take a couple of touches too many, which we've been talking about before on the podcast. He's not as incisive as you'd want him to be. So that was a chance that sort of I remember. But it was a bit of a crap first half, to be honest.
I mean, I guess the less said about the first half, the better. But even looking into the second half, you know, if you look at who had the the better chances of the two teams, you would have to say that it was QPR. You know, there were two sitters, arguably. I think of Dykes on the 72nd minute. On the 72nd minute, I mean, surely he's got to be putting that away. And you'd thinking if you're a QPR fan, you'd feel pretty shortchanged by that result. What do you think, George?
I definitely agree. I think we've got to give a fair bit of credit to QPR. I thought they played pretty well, and if you watch that game not knowing who was the Championship side and who was the Premier League side, you might well come out of it thinking QPR were the team in the Premier League. I think they pressed well, they pressed high, they looked good on the ball, and that chance that they created for a long period of time was probably the best chance of the match. Obviously, we'll come to our goals later, but they were good finishes from tough position. But that chance for the striker Dykes was, it was gilt edge, being through 1-on-1 with the keeper. The cliche of you got to put them away. That phrase normally annoys me so much, but it's probably right here. All I can say is if we're in the crowd, that one would have got plenty of cheers from the Fulham faithful. That was he's not going to be happy watching that one back, is he?
No, absolutely not. And I mean, it did make me perhaps count our blessings that we weren't in the ground, because I mean that's the thing that makes derbies so exciting and so tense, is those little reactions between the crowds and so on. And you got to think that if we were at Loftus Road at times, maybe the atmosphere would have meant that it's the difference in those kind of situations between going 1-0 down and prodding forward. But so QPR definitely better opportunities in that second half. But for me, it was the substitutions that made the difference, that tilted the game in our favour. Obviously, Bobby Decordova-Reid coming on, and it was a great goal. Do you not think, Drew?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, what was great about Decordova-Reid is he was playing. He's been doing so well in his sort of right wing back sort of hybrid role that he's been doing in the Premier League. But he was no messing about today. Straight up top with Mitro for a bit, and it was a well taken goal. And it was that bit of class that we needed, I think. As George said, it was a well taken goal from sort of a different, sort of not the easiest of chances, really. But it was funny, isn't it? You wait 120 minutes nearly for a goal, and two come along at once. So it was lovely to see Decordova-Reid get another. It feels to me like that's exactly kind of what we wanted as well, having had such an extended break, COVID influence break. It's good for a player who's actually going to be in the starting 11 come Chelsea to carry on sort of plucking out that confidence, because 4 draws in a row before the enforced break, it's a run, but it's not necessarily what you typically call momentum. So when we came back, I was wondering whether that was going to be stunted somewhat, and obviously you come out today with progression to the next round and a goal for a really important player for us. So that's a huge positive.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a great performance off the bench from Decordova-Reid, and he's become our kind of bit of a talisman for us. He's our top scorer this season. And do you think he starts up front against Chelsea, George?
You've got to, right? I think just looking at the comment on the screen, I'd fully agree with that. I think Bobby Reid is one of those really, I don't know, is streaky the right word? I remember when he played for Bristol City a few seasons ago, he was absolutely terrifying to play against. Like, anytime we would come up against them, like, he was the guy that I would be frankly frightened of being against, because his scoring record was so good. And for the years he was playing in red, he was pretty much unstoppable in the league. Obviously struggled a bit moving to Cardiff, and then frankly I don't think he played that well in his first season with us. But now, for some reason, he seemed to be able to turn it on, and his finishing has been absolutely sublime this season. He came up with, like, he was still making a good amount of chances last season, but for some reason this year he's really found a way to put them away. I think today's a great example of that, being able to turn and slot it in. Scored a good goal against Liverpool in kind of similar fashion as well. And that's what you need in games like this, and in tight games, or indeed in the Premier League. You need those little bits of quality. You need someone who can turn those half chances put them away and sneak a lead which we maybe didn't deserve. So for me, I think Bobby's bang in form. Would love to see him play. Now we've got Tete back. Maybe Tete takes the right wing back spot and Bobby pushes up and maybe replaces Caballero. Because for me, the more of the ball that Bobby has in the attacking third close to the goal, the more I think we're going to see him thrive.
I think I absolutely agree. Even see him start up top. I mean, we saw Mitrovic obviously start today, but his contribution was. I feel like you need to give credit where credit's due in terms of holding up the ball, and obviously he laid off Bobby for the goal that put us in front. And I know we had a bit of discussion on the WhatsApp group, Josh, because I immediately came out of the block saying, "Oh, he's done brilliantly there to lay off Bobby, put it on a plate for him." And then George, sort of to my sort of contradiction, was like, yeah, all he's done is lay it off 2 yards there. But let's talk about Micho, because we've seen some people in the comment section coming in and putting their tuppence in with his performance. Drew, what did you feel about his overall performance and his general sort of demeanour and body language today? Because a few people have commented to say that it's might have been slightly off kilter.
Yeah, it's a red flag today. It's been a difficult few weeks for him for many reasons. I've never known a player to be crushed so much from a tactical omission. I think that's what it really comes down to is, we switched it up against Leicester and it worked, and we started to pursue that system where it didn't flatter, didn't suit Mitrovic. So of course he's going to be on the bench for that. And then when he comes back in briefly, you can see it's affected him. And then today, he's starting this cup game, and it's funny because obviously it almost feels like a bit of a you get a run out against a lower league opposition, stretch your legs, Mitro kind of deal, which it's not. We understand it's not. We understand he's an important player for us, but you can see it's affected him. And then you've got the New Year's Eve palaver that was ongoing as well. And look, I'm not one of these people who demands a public apology from Mitro, but the silence on it has been interesting. I know that there's a club policy way on sort of doing these things. Scott said his piece and that's it. And to be honest, that's enough for me. But playing devil's advocate, it's interesting. He's not said anything. And then today you see his body language and throughout the game and his reaction to Cabano's goal was mentioned in the comments. And I didn't necessarily see it, but I've heard a few people talk about it now where he seemed quite angry. All of this sort of comes together as well with the reports that he might be on the move as well. We might be listening to offers for him. It's all become a bit of a cluster, really, hasn't it?
Yeah, and I feel like you touched upon it there in the lack of communication from the club. It would have been nice to have seen a statement from Micho, but obviously we're not going to sort of hound him for what happened with that. But it's sad for me because he's been such a talisman for us and such a great servant, and it's apparent that he, up until perhaps now, this is the first time throughout his time at the club that there's sort of question marks over his commitment. And I mean, personally, I would love to see him stay, and I don't think that we can forget what he's done for us. But George, do you feel like there's a place for him in this Fulham side at the moment?
I think so. I mean, the way that we played when we dropped him at first against Leicester, I think to me that made sense. That made tactical sense. Scott wanted to play a style. Mitro didn't suit that style, and it was the right thing to drop him. However, for me, we're going to need to have multiple tactics and multiple kind of plans to beat the different style of opposition we come up against in the Premier League. And I think Mitro has to kind of suck it up and respect that. I think we've proved this season that there's no player who's undroppable. There's no player who's bigger than the club. And I think what we need to do and what the players need to do is respect what the plan that Scott comes up with for each game. He's going to put the best players out for that specific plan. If you play in it, great. If not, you've got to work hard in training to force Scott's hand and put you back in the team. I think for me, what's really worrying, and I don't know, it's maybe hard to know whether his body language was poor, which caused the drop, and his body language is still poor, or if it's kind of vice versa and the other way around. But his body language was strange today. When we've seen him in the past get a bit isolated from a game, he tends to drop back and he kind of forces the issue. We didn't see that today. We saw him, put his arms up and look frustrated. right up the pitch. He didn't take the game by the scruff of the neck like we saw. And the comment about the goal celebration, the celebration for Cabanas' goal, that was quite weird. I mean, the only angle I've seen of it is from behind him, where you can see him kind of throw his arms up in the air. So it could be kind of an act of relief, or it could be one of frustration. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, because I've only kind of seen it from the view from behind him. But for me, really disappointing to see Mitro clearly unhappy. And like, now's not the time where I want to see that during the January transfer window, because rumours are going to start flying now, and that kind of thing really isn't good for the team.
No, I would totally agree, and I guess we can hope that he sticks around for the duration of this window. And the thing about Mitrovic is that he obviously wears his heart on his sleeve, and he's a very sort of expressive, emotive player. So you've got to maybe hope that you don't read into too much of those little sort of body language and those kind of characteristics, and then just hope that he's going to stick about, I guess. But I think we've talked enough about the match, and maybe the less we talk about this match, the better, in terms of how entertaining it was. But I just want to touch upon the FA Cup as a whole and this competition, because for me, the thing that makes the FA Cup is going to the matches and maybe the chance to sort of have a trip around a bit of a more quirky ground in the country that you've not been to before. And there's that excitement of getting thrown up against an opposition that you're not normally going to get thrown against, and you've got a great day out on your hands. But obviously in this lockdown, there's no chance of that. We're only watching from home. So, I mean, Drew, do you personally care about the FA Cup? Would you like to see us progress further, or do you feel like we need to put all of our resources into remaining in the Premier League?
Yeah, it's a funny one, isn't it? Because also you go on a cup run and you ultimately want to end up at Wembley in the final with all your mates and see your team there. So, and obviously if that happens, we're not going to be there either. So no, do I care about the FA Cup? I do. I mean, today, at the end of the day, there was many positives to take from it. I think, we've come away with a win over our local rivals. We've had players come back. We've got a lot of interesting questions about the makeup of our defence in the next game, with Tete and Congolo coming back. There's plenty of positives to take. Next round, I think the draw's on Monday. That's always fun. There's a lot missing. There's a lot missing from football at the moment with this lockdown. We've gone over it. It is very different. But do I want us to go out of a cup? Absolutely not. I want to see us go as far as we can in everything. It's going to be really tough at the moment with the fixture congestion on the horizon, particularly as we've got two more to shoehorn in now. But I want us to stay in, so I'm really pleased with today.
Good stuff. And it may seem like a bit of a pointless question at the moment, George, but hypothetically, you're looking at the fourth round draw. Who are you hoping that we get? Do you hope that we get a lower league side and give them something to look forward to, and hopefully give us a good chance of progressing further, or do you want to see us challenge a bit more and get one of the top Premier League sides? What do you reckon?
It's a good question. I mean, you see, the match that springs to mind is Chorley beating Derby 2-0. Games like that, which I really want to avoid. And you think back to, was it last year when was it Oldham who knocked us out at the Cottage? Was that the FA Cup or the league?
Yeah, it was a dark day.
Yeah. So I mean, we've had our kind of our few dark days of being drawn against some of the lower league boys and really, kind of putting our foot in it. I don't know. As long as it's an interesting matchup, whether it's lower league or higher up, I don't mind too much. For me, as long as we don't get Man City away, I'm really bored of getting knocked out of the cup by Man City. Anything aside from the top four, I think we've got a good chance of winning. So, yeah, for me, anything like that would be good. And now we can't go to the games like home or away. I don't really mind. I guess it's nice for the boys to play at home, so we might as well root for a home draw, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's a valid point. And yeah, thanks for everyone who's joined us so far on this full-time live. We're going to go to some comments now, I reckon. So thanks for everyone who's got in touch. So I'm just going to go for Dan Coldreet. Roja impressed me. Feel bad to see him always on the bench. And this is something that I felt quite strongly about early on in the season. I felt he was really hard done by to sort of lose his number one spot to Areola, obviously, but it's become apparent that obviously he's a world-class keeper, is Areola. But I mean, just today, Rodak's performance, I thought he was brilliant. He made some fantastic saves. And I think to have two goalkeepers of this caliber in our side is a position I can't remember the last time we were this strong in the keeper field. Would you agree, Drew?
Yeah, it's been many years. It's almost Taylor van der Sar, or when we had it was Crossley and Niemi, was it? I'm thinking of 1-2 goalies at the same time. Yeah, it's great to see Rodak come in and play well. It's what the cup's all about as well. Clubs in the Premier League often have a cup keeper and a league keeper. We know why Areola came in, and that's been vindicated long in the past. We know that. So Rodak has to come in and carry on performing the way that we know he can, which is what he's done. I think we've got big plans for Matt Rodak. I think you could see that the way we developed him or loaned him out to get him developed, like that shows long-term thinking from us, which is something that you can't always credit the club with. So I think that his stock couldn't be higher among the bods at Fulham. Obviously, much higher than Marcus Bettinelli in my mind. So, he's really still a young keeper. All he can do is what he's doing here. And, a performance like today isn't going to do him any disservice. And imagine, against Chelsea, God forbid, something happens to Areola, he's in a 50-50 challenge and he's out. That can easily happen over the course of the season. And to have Rodak ready and rearing to go without the need to warm up, but seemingly, because he came straight in today and performed fantastically, that is crucial. And that's what you need, the depth you need to stay in the Premier League.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd have to agree. And well, thank you very much, gentlemen. This has been Full-Time Live. I've been joined by Drew Heatley.
Thanks very much, George.
And George Singer.
Thanks, mate. And
it wasn't the prettiest of games, but at the end of the day, we beat our local rivals yet again. When was the last time we lost to QPR? It's been a little while, especially in the cup. So yeah, I think all the overall reasons to be cheerful, I think, and I hope everyone who's joined us has a cracking rest of your weekend, and there'll be eager anticipation on the fourth round draw. Let's hope for a good one. Thanks to everyone who's joined us and for all your engagement and your comments. It's much appreciated. And yeah, on to Chelsea on Saturday. How are we feeling for that game, by the way?
Friday.
Friday
night.
How are we feeling? Do you think this could be finally the time that we have our long overdue win against you? When was the last time we beat them? Was it 2002, 2003, 5?
I think it was the Johnny. No, it wasn't the Johnny. It was a while ago. 2005, I'm sure.
We came close when Idiger Johnson missed that penalty. Was it Idiger Johnson? Oh no, it was Dempsey missed the penalty. Idiger Johnson had it. Yeah, that was the closest I think we've come in recent time. Do you think this could be our chance?
Well, Lampard's as big a myth as Loftus-Cheek, isn't he? So I think there's a decent chance.
What do you reckon, George?
I think if there's a time to play him, like surely it's now, when everyone's kind of hounding Lampard. Werner and Ziyech can't score to save their lives. Like, I think if there's a time to go for it, like, why not now? Yeah, come on. We'll do it.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thanks to everyone who's joined us. It's been Full-Time Live. There'll be a podcast out tomorrow or tonight, so keep your eyes and ears peeled for that. And come on, you